Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio, a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network LLC. And on today's episode of Lest We Forget History, we will discuss this episode how presidential war powers work without congressional approval. It's put out by GovFacts, and it was written as recently as January 9th, 2026. So, what to know? First thing you have to be aware of is that our current president, with our ally Israel, not only declared war on Iran, but invaded and dropped bombs and missiles. And in doing so, apparently, they got to kill the leader of that particular country. However, there has been repercussions because Iran saw fit to bomb our bases in neighboring European and Eastern European countries. So they have answered. However, what you want to know is whether or not our current president has the power and the authority to invade and create a war with another sovereign nation, even though our Congress did not vote for it. Now, our current president has done this before with Venezuela, and 5 days later, after the initial attack and war that followed, the Senate voted 52-47 to advance a resolution that would prevent our current president from taking further military action in Venezuela without congressional approval. 5 Republicans broke the ranks to join all the Democrats, and our current president responding by calling them traitors who never be elected to office again, and declared that the War Powers Act itself was unconstitutional. Well, for somebody who's never been to law school or served in the military draft or in the armed forces, I don't think he has a really firm leg to stand on. Our Constitution says that Congress declares war, not the President of the United States. Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war. Article 2 makes the president commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And these two provisions have been fighting each other for 237 years. Our forefathers, who wrote the Constitution, initially proposed giving Congress the power to, quote, make, unquote, war, a formulation that would have put the legislative branch firmly in control of initiating hostilities. They changed it to, quote, declare, unquote, war to allow presidents to respond to sudden attacks without waiting for Congress to convene. Have we seen any Iranian jets over here dropping bombs on our city? No. At least not the last time I looked. And I'm in the city of brotherly love. Next to Boston, it's the highest on the list for the Russians to nuke us. That small edit created a gap wide enough to drive 150 aircraft through, states the government facts. Presidents have interpreted, their commander-in-chief, our current president's authority, as permission to launch operations lasting months or years against countries that haven't attacked us without asking Congress for anything. That legal theory goes like this, quote, the commander-in-chief clause gives the president built-in power to use armed forces when the president perceives a threat to national security or American interest. Congress can fund the armed services or not, but it can't tell the president how to use the troops once they exist. Food for thought, opinion. He's probably using the war to distract people from the Epstein's file, or based on the old 20th century notion that making war makes a strong economy in the United States. Either way, he doesn't have a firm leg to stand on. End of opinion for right now. When Congress tried to fix this problem in 1973, it didn't work. After Vietnam dragged on far longer than it was supposed to, based on dubious legal justifications, Congress passed the War Powers Resolution over President Nixon's veto. The law was clear. Presidents must notify Congress within 48 hours introducing armed forces into hostilities. These forces must be withdrawn within 60 days, or my opinion, before they run out of ammunition. Congress authorized their continued presence. So what does this mean to you? In practice, this resolution has proved almost completely ineffective. Presidents have developed multiple strategies to avoid compliance. So our present president isn't the first, nor will he probably be the last. The simplest: claim the operation doesn't constitute, quote, hostilities, end of quote. When Obama conducted a 78-day bombing campaign in Libya in 2011, his administration argued it didn't trigger the War Powers Resolution. The U.S. was only, quote, supporting, unquote, air operations, not engaged in sustained combat. Well, let me explain Israel then. Congress failed to authorize the campaign. The House voted 295 to 232 against authorizing the intervention, and the bombing continued. Another approach could be called Operations Law Enforcement or Counterterrorism instead. Each label comes with its own legal framework that supposedly exempts the action from War Powers Resolutions requirements. There's always a way to build a better fence. Our current administration has taken this as a logical conclusion with Venezuela by framing Maduro's seizure as executing an arrest warrant rather than conducting an invasion. Officials argue that the War Powers Resolution doesn't apply at all. Never mind that, quote, the arrest, unquote, involved more aircraft than some countries' entire air forces and resulted in 75 deaths. It's law enforcement, the current administration states, with helicopter gunships. Between 1973 and 2012, the courts decided 8 cases involving the War Powers Resolution, and every single one, they found a reason not to rule on whether the law had been violated. They determined that the people suing didn't have the right to challenge it. The law sounds strong, but who pays attention? The President of the United States. And why use an old authorization nobody remembers? Pass it. This is a simpler path to war without congressional approval. Use an authorization Congress passed decades ago for a completely different conflict. Let's see. Revolutionary War? No. The War of 1812? Nah. Civil War? No. Vietnam? Korea? Afghanistan? Iraq? Make your choice. Presidents have used the 2001 authorization for use of military force passed 3 days after 9/11 to justify operations in at least 7 countries against dozens of organizations, many of which didn't exist in 2001. President Bush's authority to use, quote, all necessary and appropriate force, unquote, against those responsible for the attacks, specifically Al Qaeda and anyone harming them. The authorization didn't expire. It doesn't require demonstrating any connection between our current target and the 9/11 attacks beyond asserting that one exists. Presidents from both parties have stretched its language to cover actions against groups that are enemies of Al Qaeda or that occupy territory once controlled by groups affiliated with Al Qaeda or that share ideological similarities with organizations that splintered from Al Qaeda's philosophical descendants, hence Iran. The 2002 Iraq War authorization remains on the books too, available for any president who wants to claim justification action in Iraq or against Iraqi link groups or in the general vicinity of Iraq. Both parties have proposed repealing them, but neither votes to do so. The result? Presidents operate in a legal environment where they can claim congressional authorization for almost any action. They invoke authorizations passed for different wars against different enemies in different decades. And if those don't fit, there's always the commander-in-chief clause. And we'll close it out on this. So you want to hear more about it or click the link to read the full article, please visit passionateworldtalkradio.com/blog. Listen to the podcast, view the podcast, read the summary, and more important, click on that link that's provided to read the total article. It provides you all the facts one needs to understand what principles our current administration is using to justify declaring war and having war with Iran. And if you have any opinions about this or any of the other administrative moves that our current administration is doing, please text us or write to us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com. Thank you very much and have a great day.